Okay, I'm here with Dr. Willard, who teaches religion, philosophy and ethics at the University of Gloucestershire. I'm going to ask him some more stupid questions, as is my wont. The first question was, to what extent do Aristotle's principles of cause anticipate modern theistic beliefs?
Well, that is a very interesting question, but I would say that it seems to me that the causation here is the wrong way around. It's not that modern theistic beliefs anticipate Aristotle, but Aristotle is the cause of modern theistic beliefs. So some views about, for example, that the necessity of the first cause, or some people will say what caused the Big Bang and so on, these all have their origins in Aristotle, in his physics and in his metaphysics, where from a certain kind of metaphysics, or Aristotle's conception of nature, requires for there to be a first cause. But what's really important is these have no real religious value for Aristotle in the way that one might think about religion today. For Aristotle, they are scientific considerations, and his ways of thinking about nature requires a certain kind of theology. But the God that Aristotle comes up with is not a God you could pray to, is not a God that's in any way concerned with human life, it's nothing to do with ethics, and so on. Now that notion of God comes into Christianity and Islam and the other major monotheistic religions later on in their history, probably caused by around dogmatic questions about how to defend certain notions of faith through reason. But if you like, they're kind of inserted within Christian faith from the outside. I would say that modern scientific views today do not require any notion of a first cause, and in fact, probably from Newton onwards, science rejects the necessity for the existence of God to understand nature.
So you might argue that the persistence of Aristotle has become a function of the way that religions have used him.
Yeah, I mean,
in that sense,
for Aristotle, the notion of first cause comes from his scientific view of nature. Now that science is no longer exists, that paradigm no longer exists, there's no necessity for a first cause to understand nature. So I always find it very strange when Christian or other believers refer to a first cause, because they're referring to a science that is no longer valid. But on top of that, probably more importantly, I don't think faith requires a rational justification through what now we would consider to be a pseudoscience.
No, it's a very peculiar version of faith that isn't about what faith is, believing in something despite absence of evidence, that requires some kind of rational underpinning.
If you actually go back to many of the, for example, scholastic philosophers like Aquinas, or other philosophers like Maimonides, a Jewish philosopher, when you actually look at the context of their rational justification of faith, it's not a reason for them to believe. It's not that they didn't believe and then needed a scientific theory to believe, as a lot of nowadays, because science is so dominant that people seem to require. They were actually forms of prayer. They believed already, and using reason or using their scientific views was just a way of celebrating God's creation. But they already believed in God. They didn't need Aristotle or any other science as a cause of their belief.
Thank you.